All right. Welcome back to the Declassified Podcast. Manny, how's it going?
Doing well, man. I'm glad to be back. How you guys doing?
Lovely.
Doing
Outstanding.
real good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, we're doing great because your guy, and I always say this when you come on the show, Manny discovered Antonio Gibson for the Washington football team fan base. He brought it to me. He said, this guy is the guy. He is going to be a tier one running back in the NFL. And you gave me the comp of Joe Mixon right out the gate before we ever saw him take a handoff, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And he had his most impressive game against Tampa Bay thus far for me, even though he only averaged 2.7 per carry. I think it was really the fact that he just kept grinding yards out, which is something I have wanted him to do since he's been here. Give me your sort of feel for where he's at in his progression at this point.
Yeah, man. I was really happy with his game on Sunday, to the point where I would even argue that was his best game of his career. You can look at the numbers, you can say what you want to say about that, but he had a great game against Dallas last year. But when you look at it from the fact that he went against an elite front seven, who we all figured he was not going to run well against, they stopped the run pretty well. But the mere fact that number one, he held on to the football. Number two, I like the fact that Scott Turner stuck with him. But you look at the fact that he just continuously just gutted out yards. I mean, he was physical. I saw really good vision from him. And he wasn't like, because sometimes you see these backs, like they start kind of giving up because all they're getting is like 1 yard. But he knew that it was going to be tough to get this, those yardage. And he kept putting his head down and kept going for it. And so I was really, really impressed with that game. I thought he had his best catch of his career in the first half. And then I think he kind of outmaxed that on the final drive, I think it was, where he had that other catch when he split out wide, which I thought was a brilliant catch. And so we're seeing what he can do. And I think I posted it on Twitter like a month ago, where I just feel like Scott Turner is still kind of keeping him in a box for a little bit to make sure that he becomes a running back who he wants him to be. And I think that he's getting to that point now where he's settled into knowing what he needs to do at running back. His vision, I think it's all kind of slowing down for him now. And he's understanding what he needs to do at the position, has to continuously work on that, holding the football and not dropping the rock. That's really important. But I see a guy that's turning into a complete running back. And I'm really excited for, the coming games and next year when I feel like that they're going to really unleash him.
Manny, you touched on something that I completely agree with, that Scott Turner, I feel like he's limiting him, and I wanted to get your thoughts on Scott Turner's offense. Do you feel that Gibson can continue his progression with Scott Turner's offense? If you take this Bucs game out, I mean, there were some games where Gibson got 8 carries, and it's like, how can you develop with 8 carries? Do you think that, with this kind of Scott Turner's offense, if he shifts and goes 24 carries every game, that's awesome. But, do you think this offense is kind of holding him back or, kind of stifling that progression that we all want to see from Gibson?
Yeah, I think I talked about it last time I was on this podcast, where I've been on the fence with Scott Turner. And I feel like I'm still on the fence with Scott Turner, but I'm actually leaning, this year, I don't know, it's something about his offense that has me not completely disappointed. Like there's some games where I really do feel like he should have stuck to the run more. And I think he's learned from that mistake. And I think you saw that in this Tampa game where he could have easily stopped, calling run plays, and he kept with it. And I think Ron Rivera even talked about that as well, where he said that he wanted Scott to stick with the run. But as far as AG in this offense, I think it's a perfect fit for him. And I think Scott Turner has a plan for him. But again, I think that Scott Turner, when they went and saw him at the Senior Bowl, before even drafting him, they saw him as a raw potential running back. He went to the Senior Bowl as a receiver, but he ended up playing running back at the Senior Bowl. And I think they saw what he could be, but they know that he's young. I mean, he's only 23 years old or something like that right now.
He's very young.
Yeah. And so I think they wanted to take their time, and it's always like, that saying of like, you can be a master of a lot, not a master, but the ability to do a lot of things, but not a master of one of them.
Yep.
And I think that they wanted to prevent that from happening, where he's just like this, I think his nickname is the Weapon. And, a lot of people thought that, he was just going to be bouncing around at different positions. But, immediately I was like, no, this dude is a running back. They want him to be a running back. But I think we're starting to inch to that point where they feel comfortable with where he's at mentally at running back, where they can, hopefully next year start unleashing him in the passing game. And I think part of it too has to do with having McKissick, a guy you can lean on with that. I don't know if they're going to bring him back next year or just completely lean on AG. But I like Gibson in this offense. Do I think that he could be a star on a different offense in the league? Like, say if he was in New Orleans with Kamara or something like that, an offense that just like they know how to use these guys. Like, yeah, I think he would probably be posting even more numbers right now. But I think that he can be a great running back in this system.
So all things considered, and I remember how hype you were about Gibson, are you disappointed in his season so far to this point?
I started getting disappointed. My barber, shout out to Jordan. I think deep down in his heart, he likes Gibson, but he tries to poke at me anytime Gibson does something that, is just not good. And I feel like before the bye week, he had a couple weeks there where I felt like he was definitely not playing that well. And I feel like a lot of that had to do with his shin injury. You talk to guys who have had this injury, or some of the doctors, they're like, it's unbelievable to see a guy who's playing running back be able to do it, consistently with this injury, because it's a painful injury, they say. And so was I disappointed? Yes. Those few weeks before the bye week, I started kind of getting a little disappointed. I was like, man, what's going on with my boy? Like, what's going on with him? But I stayed on the train because I know that he has the capability of being a great player. The fumbles, that definitely concerned me. But even in those games where he just didn't produce much and he had just a bad game, you still could see the skill set there. I would argue, and I was arguing, the first 3 weeks of the season, first 3-4 weeks of the season, to me, and the numbers may not say it, he was playing at a extremely high level. You look at some of the film from those first few weeks, and AG was balling. They just weren't sticking with the run. That's probably the reason why you don't see the stats matching up with it, because they went away from the run too fast. But yeah, I mean, overall, I still believe in the guy. I still think he's going to be a great player.
Manny, one of the things that I've loved about Gibson is his toughness, running inside, running between the tackles, and as a wide receiver converting to running back. That's not something you always get. And you saw him from the beginning in college. Is that one of the things that you noticed about him, was his toughness? Because I love that about him. Usually you see a wide receiver to running back and they're looking to try to bounce runs outside, get away from those big bodies. Gibson has no fear. He goes right up in there and he lowers the shoulder and he goes. And I just think that's a really good trait for a running back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I said when I looked at his film when he came out of college is he played like a running back. He played receiver, but he caught the ball like a running back. He was never really a hands catcher. He was more of a cradler. And but he also ran the football when he did get the ball in his hands. He kind of ran it like a running back. He looked for contact, wasn't afraid of it. I mean, you see a lot of his tape and he's just breezing by people. I think you see now in the league that, it's hard for him to have that completely because he's still fast, but, he's not in college anymore. All these guys are fast in the league. But yeah, I definitely saw the physicality there in college as well.
You talked about him splitting out wide, and I got so excited when I saw him go out wide versus Tampa, because it's like, where's this been? Right? And of course, he makes the catch, and it's a good productive play. what you said earlier is the point that Scott Turner wants to hold him back from that because he wants him to focus on development and turning into a running back, or is it that they don't feel like he's prepared yet to do all or handle all those responsibilities, do you think?
Yeah, I know. I think when they first brought him in last year, one of the things, especially with not having the full all season, was they felt that at one point in time, I think he was kind of going back and forth between like the receiver room and the running back room. And they wanted him to focus on running back, but at the same time, they kind of wanted to see just throw a lot at him. And they realized that it was too much. That's what I heard, from the beat reporters and stuff that was there. And they started focusing more on him just at running back. So I think that's like part of it where like it was a little bit too much on his plate at first. And again, they wanted him to master that position. But I think he's at a point now where like he's ready to be unleashed. And I feel like he's been ready to be unleashed, even earlier in the season. But again, I think part of this too is JD McKissic. You have a weapon in JD McKissic who you want to use as well. And they even, there were some games early in the season where he wasn't that productive, and they even made it a point that, hey, we got to get JD the ball more. So that, can kind of take away from Gibson's touches. So again, I think it's going to be interesting to see if they even bring JD back, or if they just say, okay, we're going to be all in on Gibson and maybe draft another guy to kind of replace JD. But yeah.
Manny, you touched on this earlier, and it's something that I didn't know how important to a running back it is, whether it's really important a little bit, or is it a trait that can be developed. You touched on the vision, for a running back, being able to kind of see the lanes open, close. Again, you're converting a wide receiver to a running back. Do you think all of that is happening right now for Gibson, to where, hey, he's now got that vision, he can kind of see that lane as it's about to open so he can go through it? Or do you think that's kind of still a work in progress a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's becoming better every single week at being able to find those holes and explode through them, because like he has the reason why I think that he has the potential to be elite is that when he sees the hole, like number one, he has the speed to immediately go through it. Then number two, he has the physicality. But then he also has this ability to evade. And you just don't see a lot of backs who can do that, on all three levels of the offense, far from getting the ball, finding the hole, exploding through it, and then, okay, let me make the first guy miss. Like he's capable of doing that. And so I see it now, like his vision, I just feel like it's getting better all around. Like I think that the game is just slowing down for him. Even in pass pro, I've been very, very impressed with him in pass pro. And I think his vision there is getting better, where he's able to see where the free defender is coming from, and he's turning and he's immediately putting his body on him. He's a big guy. He's able to get these guys, under control. And so I think all around you're seeing better vision from him as a pass protector, as a running back.
One thing
that pass protecting, I was gonna say that his pass protection, that's been a huge surprise, and you're right, he's done a really excellent job at that.
Yeah.
The one thing I think I still want to see from him is more breakaway runs for a guy with his athleticism, and I think that's going to come as his vision continues to improve, and his understanding of playing the running back position develops. I think more of those really big runs will come, and then when that arrives, that's when he's going to reach his full potential of being really, really special.
Right. Yeah, that's actually been something I've been wondering, like, why hasn't that happened enough? Why haven't those carries which she's capable of having? And I don't know if it's probably partly him. It may also be a little bit of the offensive line, the fact that you got bodies moving in and out of the offensive line every single week. And, it also takes them being able to have continuity there, being able to get to the second level together, being able to really open up some of those lanes down the field for him to continue, exploding. But I think it'll come, he hasn't had a 100-yard game this year. That's been another thing that has been a little bit, surprising to me. But then I look around the league and I feel like you see with these running backs where it's not really about them having 100-yard rush games anymore. It's about total yardage. And I think that's where the fact that he's been a little bit held back from being a pass catcher is a reason why you're not seeing these explosive plays, because he's being used as only a running back,
Right. I'm going to wrap it up like this, Manny. So when we first spoke, it was Joe Mixon as a comparison. Has your comparison evolved? Has it changed? Has it kind of risen? Has it gone down a little bit? Where are you at with your current comp for where Antonio Gibson's going to end up at?
Yeah, I mean, I still like the Joe Mixon. I haven't followed Cincinnati as much, so I don't know how Joe Mixon is doing this year. But I still like that comparison. My barber, again, shout out to Jordan, has compared him to a younger Le'Veon Bell as well, which I can see a little bit. I can see that a little bit. But yeah, and I know Rivera, he put out Arian Foster, was it?
Yeah.
I think that, yeah.
That's not a bad one. That's not a bad one either. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I'll take any of those guys, to be honest with you.
Yes, sir.
Manny, we appreciate your time as always.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes,
educating us fans on the Gibson experience, man. So we're grateful. Thank you again.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys.